Shalom Havrim, James Trim here. Passover is coming up this week, and so I wanted to talk to you about a couple of Passover issues in the next couple of videos. And today I want to talk to you about the Yayin, HaMeshumar, and the Passover wine. So before we get started, I want to encourage everybody to please donate to support these videos and teachings, both the video teachings that we're doing here on YouTube and the blogs that we publish and the online commentaries that we're working on, and all the efforts that we're making to the restoration. And you can do that by clicking on the donate link in the video description below, or you can send donations by PayPal to donations@wnae.org. That's donations@wnae.org. Okay, and also I want to encourage everybody to please like this video. We have a incredible like to view ratio that's frankly just unseen. So please continue to help us out with that. Like the video, subscribe to this video. We're up over 3,000 subscribers, and we're trying to reach 3,500 at this point. Click that little bell symbol, the little bell icon, so you'll get notifications when new videos come up. And let us know what you think of our videos in the comments down below, and reply to comments, get involved in discussions. All of these things are things that YouTube's algorithm looks at to decide which videos to recommend to new viewers, and we want to get recommended to new viewers. And another thing you can do to help get our videos out to new viewers is to share these videos on social media, on YouTube. They're on YouTube. I don't know why I keep saying that. On Facebook, on Twitter, and whatever other types of social media you're involved with, and share these videos with your friends. Okay, so moving on along now. Also, this video, like many of our videos, has a companion handouts, a PDF file of handouts that you can print out and follow along with us if you'd like, and the link to that is in the video description below. All right, today, like I said, we're talking about the Yayin HaMeshumar. Now, if you're not a student of Rabbinic Judaism, if you're not involved, don't have a history in Rabbinic Judaism, you may not be familiar with the Yayin HaMeshumar. Yayin is the Hebrew word for wine. Okay, HaMeshumar is a modifier that means the wine of the keeping, or the wine that has been kept. And the Yayin HaMeshumar is a long-time Jewish tradition that, in fact, the Seder is Jewish tradition, by the way. The Passover Seder is oral law, folks. The Yayin HaMeshumar is very closely tied to the Passover wine in Jewish thought. In fact, an Orthodox Jewish Seder, somebody may, especially in the Hasidic circles, somebody might jokingly bring a bottle of wine, and a common thing to do is to jokingly bring a bottle of wine that's labeled Yayin HaMeshumar. The Yayin HaMeshumar is wine that has been kept fermenting in its grapes from the foundation of the world, from creation. And it is drawn, it's a part of a brisa, or bereta in biblical Hebrew, Sephardic Hebrew, but in Ashkenazi it's brisa, pronounced brisa. What's a brisa or a bereta? It is a tradition that appears in the Talmud, for example, but does not, and it's a tradition from the Tanaitic period, from the Mishnaic period, but it doesn't come from the Mishnah. Okay, that's what a brisa is. And it's a brisa, this brisa in question is an interpretation, or at least tied to an understanding, a traditional understanding tied to Isaiah chapter 64, verse 3, or verse 4, depending on whether you're looking at a Jewish or a Christian version. And it says in Isaiah 64, "And wherefore from of old men have not heard, nor perceived by the ear, neither has eye seen an Elohim besides you, who works for him that waits for him." And the brisa in question, which appears twice in the Talmud, once in the Midrash Rabbah, and 4 times in the Zohar, at least 4 times. There may be more I haven't found. It says, what is the meaning of eye has not seen in Isaiah 64:3? Rabbi Joshua ben Levi said, "This is the wine that has been kept in its grapes from the 6 days in the beginning." This is found in Babylonian Talmud, Barakot 30, page 34b, and in Sanhedrin 99, page 99a. So the phrase "wine that has been kept" in the Hebrew is Yayin HaMeshumar, wine of keeping. And this tradition runs in traditional rabbinic Judaism. It's the wine that will be served at the Messianic feast when the Messiah reestablishes the kingdom of Israel on earth. Obviously, this is an example, by the way, although it's agada, it's agadic, not halakhic, it's an example of oral law, of tradition. And we're going to see, starting in our next handout, our next page of our handout, the Yayin HaMeshumar in 1 Corinthians. We're going to show you how Paul in 1 Corinthians is clearly intimately aware of this brisa, of this tradition, and makes use of it, and clearly believes that it's true. Let's look at this beginning in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 9. This is starting on the second page of our handouts. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 9. "But as it is written, the eye has not seen, and the ear has not heard, and into the heart of a son of man has not entered that which Eloah or Elohim has prepared for those who love him." And clearly this is referencing Isaiah chapter 64, verse 3 or 4. And it is the same material upon which the brisa is based. Now we're going to see how Paul uses it, and see that Paul is using it in a manner that makes it clear that he understands the brisa. So now let's look at 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verses 7 through 9 to get the context leading up to this. It says, "But we speak the wisdom of Eloah or Elohim in a mystery that was hidden." So this is a mystery, a sod that was hidden. "And that Eloah has before separated." Now, there's a key important thing here. The word Yayin in Hebrew, spelled Yud, Nun, Nun Sofit, it's a final Nun. It has a numerical value of 70, a gematria. Now in Hebrew, letters and numbers are the same thing, and so every Hebrew word has a numerical value called a gematria. And words with the same gematria have some special relationship to one another. And the Hebrew word sod which is the secret, hidden, mystical understanding. It's the so literally means secret or hidden, and it is sod is has a numerical value of 70 as well. In fact, there's in Israel and in Hebrew, there's a famous saying that the Yayin goes in and the sod comes out. Okay, we talked about that on a previous video in another context, but the Yayin goes in and the sod comes out, meaning that the wine goes in and the secrets come out. So that obviously a person who drinks too much has loose lips is the implication, but there's also an esoteric understanding here of the relationship between Yayin and sod. And Paul, when he says, but we speak the wisdom of Elohim in a mystery that was hidden, he is making it very clear that he's aware of and referencing this brisa, and that the relationship between Yayin and sod. Okay, because then he says, and Elohim had before separated from the ages of our glory, that not one of the authorities of this world knew, for if they had known it, they would not have crucified the Adon of glory. But, as it is written, the eye has not seen, and the ear has not heard, into the heart of a son of man has not entered, that which Elohim has prepared for those who love him. What is it that he's prepared for those that love him? Well, eye has not seen is clearly referring back to the Yayin HaMeshumar, the wine that has been kept, and that this is the mystery that was hidden, the Yayin and the sod. And just as the brisa says that this is the wine that's been kept from the 6 days in the beginning, Paul says that this was before separated from before the ages of our glory. Okay? So this is clearly referring to, Paul is clearly aware of this brisa. He's clearly aware of the concept of the Yayin HaMeshumar, and he is referring to it very clearly to those that are familiar with the brisa. And this is why it's so important to be able to read the Ketuvim Netzarim and the writings of Paul and the other authors of the Ketuvim Netzarim with a knowledge and understanding of the oral law and of the traditions of Judaism, because there are so many layers of things that are said that don't even make sense, or you can't grasp their full meaning without this understanding. Okay, so it's clear that Paul's referring to this, and this is what Yeshua refers to at the Passover Seder in his last earthly Seder in Matthew chapter 26 verses 27 through 29. And afterwards he took the cup and blessed and gave to them, saying, drink you all of it, for this is my blood of the new covenant, or the renewed covenant, which is shed for many to atone for sinners. And I tell you, hereafter I will not drink of the fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new with you in the kingdom of my Father which is in heaven. This is the Yayin HaMeshumar that is drank at the Messianic feast when the Messianic kingdom, the millennial kingdom, is established. And this is exactly what Yeshua is saying. I'm not going to drink this again until I drink it with you at the marriage supper of the Lamb, at the in Revelation 13:8, before the Lamb that was slain from the foundation of the world, just like the Yayin HaMeshumar, the blood of the Passover lamb, which is represented by the wine in the Seder cup, represents the Yayin HaMeshumar, which is also from before the foundation of the world. It was being kept from the time of creation. Okay? In the apocryphal Gospel of Thomas, Yeshua is quoted as saying, I shall give you what no eye has seen, and what no ear has heard, and what no hand has touched, and what has never occurred to the mind of man. That's Gospel of Thomas, saying 17. Now, it's not canonical, but one of the other sayings in the Gospel of Thomas, in fact, the very first one, comes from the Gospel according to the Hebrews, and many of them come from the Synoptic Gospels and from the Gospels in general. I think some of them maybe, I'd have to go back and research it again. I haven't looked at it in years, but some of them may be Johnian as well. But at any rate, many of them are authentic sayings, and they may all be authentic sayings. But this is a very interesting saying because it ties very closely here with our brisa. Okay, going back to 1 Corinthians, chapter 18, verse 20, the same wisdom that we're later told is the mystery that is hidden before separated from the foundation of the ages, which Elohim has prepared for those who love him, is also the wisdom that takes away the wisdom of the wise in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 19, which is quoting Isaiah 29, verse 14. In Isaiah 29:15, that wisdom is the contents of the sealed book. In Isaiah chapter 29, verses 11 through 12, verse 14 and verse 18. In Revelation, this book is opened by the Lamb as if it was slain, in Revelation 5:6. A lamb slain, quote, before the foundation of the world, in Revelation 13:8. So all of this is fitting together very neatly. This is the wine that will be served at the marriage supper of the Lamb in Revelation 19, verse 7, the great messianic banquet, which is a Passover Seder. Okay. In 1 Corinthians, Paul brings up the Yayin HaMeshumar at the very beginning of his letter because he's going to be addressing this Passover wine throughout his letter. In 1 Corinthians chapter 5, he discusses the recent Passover Seder at Corinth, and in chapter 11, verses 23 through 34, he addresses the significance of the Passover Seder, and especially one being worthy to drink the wine, which is symbolically the Yayin HaMeshumar. And then in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 54, he cites Isaiah 25:8, a passage of Isaiah which immediately follows the description of the messianic banquet in Isaiah chapter 25, verses 6 through 7. So Paul has this messianic banquet at which the Yayin HaMeshumar is served in his mind in 1 Corinthians. It's central to what he's talking about. In fact, this is what we read in Isaiah 25, 6 through 8. Let's just put it all together. And in this mountain, Yahweh of hosts makes unto all the people a feast of fat things, a feast of wines on the lees of fat things, full of marrow, of wines on the lees well refined. And he will destroy in this mountain the face of the covering cast upon all people, and the veil that is spread over all the nations. And then verse 8 is what he quotes in 1 Corinthians, or he cites in 1 Corinthians 15:54. He will swallow up death in victory, and Adonai Yahweh will wipe away tears from off all the faces, and the rebuke of his people shall he take away from off all the earth, for Yahweh has spoken it. And realize that when Paul quotes or cites Isaiah 25:8 in his letter, most people didn't own books back then. So they memorized, they learned in Sabbath school each week as they were growing up. and they memorized these things, and they knew these verses very well. So when he cites Isaiah 25:8 in the Second Temple era, his audience immediately recognizes, oh, that's following up on Isaiah chapter 6 and 25 verses 6 through 7. And then you get to verse 8. So it has to do with this messianic feast and the wine. Okay? And so the Yayin HaMeshumar is something which, quote, from of old men have not heard nor perceived by the ear, neither has the eye seen. Elsewhere Isaiah writes in chapter 52 verse 15, so shall he sprinkle many nations, kings shall shut their mouths because of him, for that which has not been told them shall they see, and that which they have not heard shall they perceive. Now that certainly seems to tie in with the phrase in Isaiah 64 verse 3, from of old men have not heard, nor perceived by the ear, neither has the eye seen, in reference to the Yayin HaMeshumar. Okay? And that makes perfect sense, because Yayin is the gematria of 70, which is the gematria for sowed. Okay, this is Isaiah 52:15, by the way, is referring to the suffering servant song of Isaiah 53, which we all know from a Nazarene perspective, and we've done videos about this in the past, and I'm sure we'll do more about them in the future, how the servant of Isaiah 53 is the Messiah. So, eye has not seen is referring to the Yayin HaMeshumar. So, eye has not seen in Isaiah 52, the message in Isaiah 52:15 relates to the Yayin HaMeshumar. Now this is very interesting, because the Midrash Rabbah to Numbers chapter 13 verse 2 says, because he bared his soul unto death. This is Isaiah 53:12, and talking about the suffering servant, because he bared his soul unto death, and bruised themselves the Torah which is sweeter than honey, the Holy One, blessed be he, will hereafter give them to drink the wine kept in its grapes since the 6 days of creation, referring again to our Brisa, and this time the Midrash Rabbah is applying the Yayin HaMeshumar to the blood and death of the suffering servant of Isaiah 53:12, which makes perfect sense, because that is like a lamb that is slaughtered. And of course we have the Passover lamb. Paul writes then in 1 Corinthians chapter 2 verses 7 through 9, but we speak the wisdom of Elohim in a mystery that was hidden, and that Elohim has before separated from before the ages of our glory, that not one of the authorities of this world knew, for if they had known it, they would not have crucified the Adon of glory. But as it is written, the eye has not seen, and the ear has not heard, and into the heart of a son of man has not entered, that which Elohim has prepared for those who love him, which is the Yayin HaMeshumar. It is the blood of the suffering servant of Isaiah 53. This is Paul saying this, but we just saw it in the Midrash Rabbah. Not only is the Yayin HaMeshumar the blood of Messiah, but it's more. It is the mystery of which the blood of Messiah is only a part of that mystery. And so we see in the Zohar to Ro Mahimna in Pinchas, the Zadik, or the righteous one, is the Yesod, or foundation, in Yah. The mystery, or sod, which is the wine which has been kept in its grapes from the 6 days in the beginning. Again, There's this clear connection here because Sod, mystery, has a gematria of 70, which is also the gematria of Yayin, just as the Zohar identifies the mystery with the Yayin HaMeshumar, so Paul is doing in 1 Corinthians. For he goes on in 1 Corinthians, chapter 2, verses 10 through 16, he says this, "But Elohim has revealed it to us by his Spirit, for the Spirit searches into everything, even the deep things of Elohim. For who is the Son of Man who knows what is in a Son of Man, except the Spirit of the Son of Man which is in him? So also that which is in Elohim, no man knows except the Spirit of Eloah," or Elohim. "Now we have not received the spirit of the world, but the Spirit that is from Elohim, so that we might know the gifts that were given to us from Elohim, which also we speak not in the teaching of words of wisdom of sons of men, but in the teaching of the Spirit, and to spiritual men we compare spiritual things. For the Son of Man who is in the nephesh, or in the self, does not receive spiritual things, for they are foolishness to him, and he is not able to know that which is judged spiritually. Now the spiritual man judges all things, but is not judged from man. For who knows the mind of Yahweh, that he might instruct him?" Isaiah chapter 40, verse 13. "But we have the mind of the Messiah." This is very much like what the Zohar is saying, and the very concept of the Sod, the mystery of Elohim, the Sod, the highest level of understanding, and the very mind of Elohim, and the Yayin being identified with Yayin HaMeshumar. So Paul identifies the words of wisdom as well as the mind of Yahweh, or the mind of Messiah, with the spiritual gifts, which, by the way, he will elaborate on in 1 Corinthians chapter 12 through 14. And we see here where all of this originates from the ideas that Paul is starting out with in the first two chapters of 1 Corinthians, elaborating on this brisa and this concept of the Yayin HaMeshumar as understood as a brisa on this passage of Isaiah chapter 64, verse 3 or verse 4, depending on the version that you are looking at. So when you do your Passover Seder this year and every year, and when you partake of the wine of the Passover Seder, I want you to remember and keep in mind the brisa concerning the Yayin HaMeshumar, and realize that this wine is symbolic of the grapes that have been kept, the wine that has been kept since the time of creation, from the blood of the Lamb from the foundation of the world. That it is not only the blood of the Lamb, but the blood of the servant of Isaiah 53, the Messiah, and has been hidden and separated and prepared for those of us who love him. And it's not just the blood of the new covenant, it is the mind of Yahweh and the mind of Messiah and the spiritual gifts that he has prepared for us. It is the symbolic of the Sod, of the highest level of understanding and the mystery of Elohim. And Paul, unlike the Neo-Messianic Karaite, is not rejecting the oral law. The whole foundation of what Paul is talking about throughout 1 Corinthians, and his understanding of the spiritual gifts and the wine of the Passover, and the core subject matter of 1 Corinthians springboards from the first 2 chapters of 1 Corinthians, where he is very clearly expounding upon the brisa of the Yayin HaMeshumar that is associated with Isaiah chapter 64. Okay, I want to go ahead and please remind you all to donate to support this work. We need to raise, by the way, $800 in the next 48 hours to clear our rent and other bills that are passing through our account in the next 2 days. So we're at a very difficult time in the next 48 hours. So please donate to support this work, and may you all have a blessed Passover. Don't forget to like this video, to subscribe to this channel, to click the notifications bell, to let us know what you think of these videos in the comments, and share in the discussions in the comments, and share these videos with your friends. Until next time, shalom.